That's a continuation of another one I did at this location regarding beings. And are there other kinds of beings? And I was talking about how, well, if you look around nature and you see there's an infinite variety of different kinds of beings, and we are still discovering species, and we know that there's many species that once existed that are no longer existing. To ask the question, are there other beings, it seems a little bit silly. Because what we're saying is, are there some beings that we can't see? Because we already know that there's a whole lot of beings, and they see and experience reality, the same old stuff that we're in, they're in the same world that we're seeing, but they see it very differently. Their whole way of looking at it is different. Experience. Now, I touched upon the fact that our senses are extremely limited. And we have to be aware of that. Now, we also aware that many cultures for a long time have described and said, look, you know, the human being is a very amazing creation, device, technology, and in this human vessel that you have, you can train yourself and use your attention, because that's all we really have. We have an awareness. And then we become self-conscious about that, and we say, wow, you know, what can I do now? I can perceive the moments of time, slower and slower. And ultimately, other beings is about other kinds of attention. They have other kinds of senses. But maybe our senses interact. For example, we have the sense of sight, obviously, and then horses have a sense of sight. But the horse's sense of sight is very different than our sense of sight. And the horse's sense of smell is much different than our smell. But yet we do have those both. We meet on that level a little bit, because the horse can smell things that we can't smell and hear things that we can't hear. So now, how do you communicate with other beings? And first of all, remember a segment I was talking about, just looking in a mirror. Who are we as human beings? And you look at yourself in the mirror and go, whoa, that's an incredible thing, you know. But now, the ancient people said that, look, you know, all kinds of beings get born in a human body. Now that's what that's saying is this incredibly wonderful, because what it's basically saying is that the human body is that vehicle that is regarded as being especially wonderful, and that by the infinite mercy and grace of just the vastness of the random infinite vastness of all possibilities, the grace, you might say, that all kinds of beings get born into the human frame and have the opportunity. Now, there are stories from the past that say that, well, beings came from another planet or another system, and they, quote, created us. And you go, okay, well, first thought that says, well, how can that be? But now, you know, there might be some geneticist somewhere in a lab somewhere, and they're working on something, and they're doing something with the cells. They go, oh, holy cow, look what I'm doing. I'm basically I'm changing and transforming this particular type of being and giving it new features. You think, whoa, if I'm doing it, it couldn't be done. Has it been done before? And by who? So there was one researcher named Sentient, and he said that, why do some of the aliens look like us? And the question is, well, we look like them. Now, that's just what these Sumerian tablets say. I don't know, but we really shouldn't be surprised that there are beings that inhabit, there are awarenesses that inhabit energy fields that we might not be aware of. And that when you look at another human being, it's a very good thing to just be a little humble, because in reality, whenever you look at another human being, you're looking at something absolutely fantastic. For one thing, the whole vehicle, the whole magic of what's going on there. But you're also looking at the vehicle into which all manner of wonderful beings have been born. So what we have to do, in my opinion, is just to relax and synchronize ourselves with our own life force that is very present and aware right next to us. And a lot of people intuitively know that, and by doing that we can start resonating with other types of beings. And I'll say, there's a short quote that I heard one time in which a person I greatly respect, a teacher who's out traveling around the world for the last 40 years, he said, well, most people were born, it's like we go to a party and we don't know why we're at the party, we don't know who we are, and we don't know who the guests are. So you can't really feel like celebrating. But if you know who you are, and you know who the guests are, and you know why the party's happening, then you can really, really celebrate. And we find that information by looking in a mirror, looking at others, looking at ourselves, and then that illumination takes place in which we can communicate with other kinds of beings and with any other life energy that might be present, and then to have a lot of respect and a lot of humility for that. Because to even look at a beautiful tree and say, wow, what a beautiful tree, it's been there for such a long time, it produced all these wonderful fruits, it's nurtured people, it's nurtured animals for 50 years, it's provided its wood for shelter and furniture. Just to look at a simple tree, for example, let alone look at another human being, and there's an attitude and an approach that allows us to recognize other presences.